Hello guys, this is your friend Dark Fox Sage. And we are back with our new fanfic, which is, what if Naruto goes back in time to save the Uzumaki clan and there he fell in love with Mito? Part 2. And if you enjoy this fanfic, then subscribe to the channel and like the video, it motivates me to upload more fanfics like these for you all. Now let's start the fanfic. 10 months later. Land of Fire, February 13th. Naruto was currently standing in the clearing outside of his home, and staring direction into the eyes of his father. The man mentioned teaching him something today. I wonder if he's going to add on to what mom has already taught me. Before his old man joined him outside, he'd been busy practicing his calligraphy, all in the hopes of one day mastering the art known as fuinjutsu. When his mother first introduced him to the art of seals months ago, his eyes lit up. There were just so many possibilities that could be accomplished with this skill. From what he could understand, the only thing a practitioner really needed to have was imagination. His mother told him much more went into it than that, but in essence, he was correct. The world of reality has its limits, the world of imagination is boundless. He quoted his mother. Either way, it made sense his father was out here if he was indeed going to teach him about seals. It was a form of training that didn't require either party to exert much, if any, physical effort, and that was important due to the fact that his father had collapsed last year. His old man had been out hunting small game, but had not returned home at his usual time. Darkness descended upon the forest quickly that day. With their anxiety becoming nearly palpable, he and his mother eventually decided to take matters into their own hands, and ventured into the forest in search of their husband and father. They located him 1.5 miles away from home. His sickness had finally gotten to him. Naruto was still haunted by the feelings, and memory, of utter helplessness he felt that day, not sure if he'd ever see his father open his eyes again. Thankfully, the man pulled through, but what remained of his days of hunting, or any sort of physically demanding labor, were over. It was now his full-time job to hunt, and provide for the family. It was a great deal of responsibility, but he welcomed it with open arms. What really took time for him to adjust to was finding a balance between hunting and training. After some trial and error, he managed to find a routine that suited him. I'm sorry. Naruto's brows shot up in surprise as he lost concentration on his current thoughts. Whatever it was he expected to come out of his old man's mouth, that was not it. The older man now had his full attention. For the longest time, I've wanted to stand out here with you and your mother more often, he said. I wanted to be a part of helping you grow, and become a man. Instead, I've had to watch you grown from a distance. Again, I'm so. The Namikaze air did not allow his father to finish that sentence, and wrapped his arms around the man's waist tightly. His father didn't need to explain himself. He knew how busy the man was with providing, and protecting, their family. It's okay. Any time I can spend together with you is more than enough. Akihiko smiled at his son, pulling him closer. Thanks, son. I really needed to hear that. The two of them remained like that for a few more seconds before separating. Quote. I may not be able to help you all that much physically, but I can still teach you the theory behind what I do know. Are you going to teach me more fuinjutsu? The older man shook his head. No, your mother has that subject covered. What I plan on teaching you is genjutsu, and taijutsu, he revealed. Noticing the confused expression on his son's face, he decided to elaborate. Despite my own massive reserves of chakra, I'm actually very good with illusions. It also helped that it required no physical effort on his part. And the taijutsu, I'm going to instruct on you on the basics, and point out any mistakes you make. Once you have the basics down, will you be ready to start creating your own style, which both your mother and I will help you cultivate, and polish. Naruto merely nodded, choosing not to say anything in regards to his father saying he would have to create his own style. He actually already knew a form of taijutsu. Though for the life of him he didn't know how. It just came to him one day while he was out training alone, and before he knew it, he was practicing the katas. One thing he did know, however, the style itself was very strong. Hey, Naruto. Would you like to increase your training regimen? I'm always up for pushing myself harder, but how? Before I show you, answer me this. What is the most dangerous tool a human has at their disposal in our world? Naruto thought on this for a few seconds before the answer came to him. Our mind. Akihiko opened his mouth, then shut it. You're correct. The most dangerous tool a human can have in our world is indeed their mind, which is why we have to keep it sharp, but in this instance, however, I was actually looking for another answer, he said. You see, speed is actually the most dangerous tool a human can possess in our world. The span of a few seconds can mean the difference between life and death. The first Namikaze nodded. I want you to remove your shirt, and roll up your pant legs, for a moment. The Uzumaki turned Namikaze man unsealed his ink and brush, and began to draw intricate seals on his son's upper body, and legs. Now, I may not be as skilled with fuinjutsu as your mother, but I'm no slouch either. Okay, but what exactly are you applying? Inquired Naruto. Weights. Responded Akihiko. Real weights can hurt your developing body, and stunt your growth if we're not careful. With these, however, you can adjust the weight as you see fit. When Naruto heard that, he was now more than happy to receive these. They would undoubtedly help him with his taijutsu training. Though unbeknownst to him, Akihiko was also applying another seal right smack dab in the center of his chest, where many theorized the core of the chakra pathway system lay. Finally, after many years of hard work and sacrifice, his special project was complete. Though he may have told a white lie in regards to his skill with seals when it came to his wife. It's true she was better overall, but she, and even their old clan leader, Ashina, would be hard-pressed to create the specific seal he made. Not because it wasn't known, but because it was tailor-made for him and his own. The seal would all but ensure that his son lived a long life. It would transfer all of his chakra over to Naruto, and convert it so his son could use it as his own. Are you almost done? Asked Naruto. He was very eager to try these weights out. Naruto, what have your mother and I always told you? The natural blonde sighed. That patience is a virtue. Akihiko nodded. That's right, and yes, I'm done. Just give me a second to finish up. He went through a few hand seals. Fuin. Once the seal was activated, Akihiko immediately felt the pull on his own chakra core. He hid the strain on his face well, and managed to direct a small smile at his son. How do you feel? The weights are currently set to 1. The younger blonde moved around a bit, testing his arms and legs. Heavier, but other than that, I feel fine. Good. Now, seeing as we're done with that, it's time to start training. Land of Fire, February 14th. A frown marred Naruto's young face. He was currently standing atop a tree branch overlooking the river from a small distance away. While he was here to catch some fish, another part of him was also hoping to see Mito and Toka once more. He hasn't seen them once since their first meeting, but at the same time, he didn't always go to the river either, so it's entirely possible they could have just missed each other. Anyways, he was hoping today would be different in that regard, and it was, to a varying degree. There were 2 people on the opposite side of the river facing his direction, but they were not girls. They were boys, and they appeared to be around his age, maybe a few years older. And unlike Toka, he could easily see that these 2 were trained. It was all in their wrist movements as they tossed stones across the river. Constantly training with kunai, shuriken, and senbon did that, he should know. A low hum escaped his lips. I wonder how the 2 of them would stack up against Mito. He shook his head. He was distracting himself with questions he didn't need to have the answers to. He decided to continue watching them for a bit longer before ultimately deciding what to do. After studying the 2 for a solid couple of minutes, and making note that neither had tried to kill the other yet, he decided it was safe enough to reveal himself. Worst case scenario, he'd escape using one of the techniques his mother had taught him. Taking the long way around, He approached the duo from the same side they were on, so as to not give them any ideas of where he may have come from. He picked up a small stone, and flung it across to the side he was previously on. The sudden movement made the two boys snap their heads in his direction. He waved at the two. Neither boy reciprocated, and it was quickly becoming more awkward the longer it remained silent. Thankfully, the one with the bowl haircut spoke up. Oi, oi, oi. It seems like you know how to toss stones as well. That makes you a rival as well. Naruto slowly released the breath he'd been holding since first deciding to approach the two. He took a gamble, and so far, it looks like it was paying off. Still, he was surprised how quickly one of them seemed to accept him. He couldn't lie though, it felt nice. That being said, he would still need to be careful around them, especially the boy sending both him, and the boy with the bowl haircut, wary glances. It was the exact same look Mito had been giving him months ago, though this one felt much less dangerous in comparison. So, what were the two of you doing before I arrived? He asked. If he could change Mito's mind about him, then it should be possible to do the same again. The boy closest to the river, the wary one, finally spoke. Very little. He replied, his eyes still trained on the two like a hawk. I was here by myself, skipping stones, when this one arrived. His eyes traveled to the boy with the bowl haircut. I asked him who he was. He ignored my question, and then began giving me tips on hoes to toss stones. He said, finishing his explanation before looking at the boy with the weird haircut again. So I ask again, who are you? He then looked to the blonde. And who are you? The boy with the bowl haircut decided to answer first. You two can call me Hashirama. Probably best if I don't give out my surname though. The now named Hashirama, and the boy closest to the water, were both looking at him, waiting to see if he would answer. Just as he was about to open his mouth to do so, the blonde closed it. He remained silent for a few seconds before speaking again. How about a wager? If you can get your stone across to the other side, then I'll give you my name. If you can't, however, then you have to do something for me, said Naruto, having no clue where this crazy idea came from. It wasn't exactly the same way he won over Mito and Toka, but if it got him the desired results, who was he to complain? The boy closest to the river narrowed his eyes, and peered down at the stone in his hand. It suddenly felt much heavier than before. He looked at the blonde again. Don't worry, I won't ask for something unreasonable if you can't get it across. Just a simple request. Weighing his options, he decided to take the wager. If he won, then he would gain the name of a youth who had been able to sneak up on him. If he lost, he could always just not come back here. Nodding, he threw his stone. It didn't make it across, and it quickly grew silent. Before the blonde could ask the unnamed boy what he wanted, said boy turned on them, and exploded. You, yelled the unnamed boy, you both stood behind me on purpose, didn't you? You're obviously trying to distract me. He pointed at the blonde and Hashirama. I can't even take a leak if someone is standing near me. That's just how aware of my surroundings I am. Naruto was honestly caught off guard by the sudden rant, and turned to Hashirama, about to ask him if the guy across from them was being serious, but stopped when he saw said boy. He was in the fetal position. Forgive me, mumbled Hashirama, looking depressed. No need to get all emotional, said the unnamed boy. I tend to make excuses when things don't go my way, he explained. Hashirama did a complete 180, and was up in his old self the moment he heard this. No need to explain. Your ego is just so big that you have a god complex. I can't tell if you're just sensitive, or if you're just being a smart ass, commented the boy closest to the water. He then looked at the blonde. And since you haven't said anything, you're probably making fun of me. Leave, the both of you. I want to be alone. Not before you honor our deal. The unknown boy released a sigh. What do you want from me? I want you to be my friend. The request caught the other two boys off guard. Hashirama smiled at the blonde. Can I be friends with you as well? He asked. The blonde nodded his head vigorously, and extended his hand. I'm Naruto. The two newest friends looked down at the other boy, who sighed. The request wasn't unreasonable. It also helped he actually liked the blonde. Well, at least more than Hashirama anyways, which wasn't all that hard to accomplish. He looked at the two. I'm Madara. Before any more could be said between the three new friends, all of them spotted something floating in the water. It was a body. What in the world? Hashirama ran across the surface of the water to inspect it. Madara narrowed his eyes, suddenly much more alert than before. You're a shinobi. He then looked at Naruto. And you're one as well, aren't you? The blonde chose not to answer, and just remained silent. So the war has finally reached these lands, thought Hashirama. It'd be best if the both of you head on home, he said, his search yielding him no information, aside from what he initially saw upon the body. I should be leaving as well, he muttered. Later, Naruto, Madara. Hashirama disappeared into the forests. Naruto nodded at him, and then looked at Madara. See ya later, Madara. He left the same way he entered. Yeah, see you later, mumbled Madara. He wasn't so sure about this whole friendship thing anymore, especially now that he knew both of his friends were shinobi. Still, they hadn't attacked him, or each other, so he'd give them the benefit of the doubt. He left soon after as well. Home sweet home. The blonde's home came into view just as the sun in the sky lowered beneath the horizon, giving rise to its counterpart. On average, it shouldn't have taken him anywhere near as long as it did to return, but seeing as he was making sure he wasn't followed, his hands were tied on the matter. Also, he went to check on the traps afterwards. Normally, it would have taken him an entire day to check on all of them, and it shouldn't have been at all possible today seeing as he split his time at the river with Hashirama and Madara, but he was able to. It was all thanks to a technique he knew that allowed him to do so. He didn't know how he knew it, as it came to him one day, much like his taijutsu katas, but he was glad it did. It was called the Kage Bunshin. It was a different type of cloning technique from the one his mother had taught him. For one, the clones were solid, but could still be dispelled if they were hit with enough force. Secondly, and much more importantly in his opinion, whatever these clones learned, so did he. The technique didn't come without its risks though, as he quickly learned. Massive headache later, and he knew to take it easy with how many he created, and dispelled, at a time. This rule went hand in hand with his training, because despite loving that he could be in so many places at once, learning all sorts of things in a matter of time, nothing beat doing something yourself. The gratification was well worth it. He entered through the front door. I'm home. Welcome home. Kasumi greeted him. She was in the kitchen preparing dinner. So, how did it go out there today? Naruto shrugged. About the same. He responded. I brought home 2 days worth of food though. She nodded, glad to hear that, and made a mental note to place the meat on ice. Did anything exciting happen while you were out? Not really. The lone female hummed. She didn't speak for a few seconds, and the smaller blonde began to sweat a bit. Okay then. Go ahead and bathe. Dinner should be ready by the time you get out. Doing as told, Naruto breathed a sigh of relief as soon as he turned the corner. That was way to close a call. He was positive she didn't suspect anything, but he could never be sure with his mother. She just had this knack for knowing when he was hiding something. Speaking on that, he didn't enjoy lying to his mother. Yes, he'd been keeping the fact that he knew techniques neither she nor his father had taught him a secret, same with going past the boundaries they set up, but lying about his friends just felt different compared to the other things, and he didn't know why. Maybe it was because it involved others, not just him, and his family, anymore. Either way, he could only hope his new friendships with Madara and Hashirama would be worth it in the end. He was anxious, so anxious in fact that he had hardly gotten any sleep at all. Adrenaline was pushing him past his tiredness, he couldn't wait to meet his friends again. He just hoped they would be there waiting for him. Naruto looked outside of his small window and couldn't see the sun out yet, but looking up in the sky told him it would be out in a few minutes. Seeing as he couldn't hope to fall back to sleep since he was so wound up, he decided to get his usual training routine done and out of the way so he could get over there sooner. Scooting himself closer to the edge of his bed, he got out and quickly made it. He changed out of his night clothes and into his regular gear, grabbed anything he would need and headed outside. Wiping the sweat from his brow, he took a drink of water and sat down, exhausted. He had been working out since the sun had risen in the sky, yet it was still very early in the morning, so much so that he had yet to eat anything. Which is what he was going to do right now. Morning routine done, it was time for some breakfast. Morning. He greeted his mother. Good morning. She replied. Have anything planned for today? Naruto knew she was just making idle chit-chat, but couldn't help but feel there was a motive behind it. I finished my morning routine already. Next I'm going to eat, bathe, rest for 2 hours, and then start on the next phase of my training routine. He listed off his routine. After I'm all done with that, I figure I'll head back out into the forest, he said, sipping his milk. Kumiko raised an eyebrow when he mentioned the forest again. Okay, but please just remember to be extremely careful out there. He smiled at her with a big grin. Always. She gave him a smile of her own and ruffled his hair. Oh, she had just remembered something. Speaking of training, your father and I want you to start learning unarmed combat. Taijutsu. Why? It wasn't like he didn't want to learn it, but he always figured he was too little for it right now. Because there will be times when you will be left with nothing but your arms and legs. I want you to remember this phrase. Always expect the unexpected, never assume anything. Always expect the unexpected, never assume anything, he parroted. She nodded. You never know how skilled the person across from you is. They could seal your chakra or remove your ninja tools, explained his mother. Point is, I want you to be ready for any situation that ever arises in front of you. He nodded. He understood. Finishing his food and dropping his dishes into the water basin, he went for the restroom, cleaned himself, and went for his room. As soon as he spotted his bed, he dropped face first into his pillow. The youngest blonde Namikaze was currently on his way to meet his two friends at their spot. He would break into a fit of giddiness whenever he said that, their spot. That meant the three of them had a connection. He had already finished his afternoon routine of training with a few of his clones, bathed, and was moving through the canopy. He hadn't really even been that exhausted when he had finished and often found himself wondering why. Even his parents didn't know why. So after a while, he had decided to just drop it, for the moment. Recently, well only one day really, he had wondered how strong Madara and Hashirama were. If possible, he would ask for a spar for whoever was willing. A smile spread across his face when he thought about that and sped over to their spot. A giant frown was etched on Naruto's face. Why? His friends had yet to show up. He had thought perhaps he had shown up early due to his excitement and decided to wait. 2 hours later and they had yet to show. His heart had been beating faster and faster as the seconds continued to tick away while he waited. A crippling fear was latching onto his emotions. Had he done something to annoy them? Was that the reason why they had not came? No sooner had these thoughts began to filter to the rest of his mind, did he shut them down. There was no reason for them not to come and see him. He had just been his normal self and they seemed to like him, so that couldn't have been the reason they didn't show. It had to be something else. He nodded to himself, trying to reassure his own reasoning. That's right, it's just something else. Deciding to wait a bit longer to see if at least one of them would come, he silently scolded himself the way his parents often would. He could have been doing something while he had waited. Instead he had just wasted over 2 hours doing nothing and vowed not to do that again. Sighing to himself, he looked up to the sky and could see that nightfall was only an hour or two away from descending. He got up, dusted himself off, and made his way back home. He would check again tomorrow, but instead send a clone to check and send the information back to him. The following day, The time to head to the creek had finally arrived. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. He silently created a single clone and sent it off to do its assignment. Deciding to use this opportunity for more training, he created more clones and had them do chakra exercises. Meanwhile, he would explore more of the forest. Always expect the unexpected, never assume anything. The words his mother had spoken to him kept repeating over and over as he explored further and further that he decided to heed them. He didn't turn back, no, instead he decided to do something else instead. He was going to build a second home out in the forest. It would serve as training for his body since he didn't want to use chakra out of the boundary, and it would provide shelter for him and his family should anything ever happen. Neither boy had shown up yet again unfortunately in the hours he had been out in the forest. It had not however been all for naught. He had located a very big tree that would serve as the foundation for his new home and even began to design it. This project would take him a few months to finish but figuring the clones could do the work, it could probably get finished before that. 4 days later. Finally, it had been 4 days, but finally, on the 5th day they had arrived. The clone Naruto had kept sending day after day had finally dispelled and sent him good news. He had dropped his task of his makeshift home in the forest for the moment and summoned more clones to continue to work on it. In the 4 days, he and his clones had gotten enough wood from the forest to start on the floor and a bit on the walls, but that was it. Finally, Naruto was too happy to continue to think about his home and sped over to the creek much faster. The weights being little more of an afterthought. Having finally arrived at his destination, he spotted Madara and a hunched-over Hashirama on the ground looking at the water. "Yo, long time no see, greeted Madara awkwardly. It's Hashirama. He muttered, a bit miffed he couldn't remember his name. Naruto. Replied the blonde. Right. Well, how are you two doing? I'm doing good. A bit better as of recently. Chirped Naruto, a smile in place. Hashirama didn't answer. Why are you sulking for? Queried Madara. It was an odd sight for him since the boy had such a bubbly personality just a few days ago. He still didn't answer. What's wrong? Asked both Naruto and Madara simultaneously. Hashirama looked up at them with sadness in his eyes. Mind if I ask you some? Never mind. No need to be shy. We're all ears. Stated the other raven-haired youth. Naruto nodded in agreement. Yeah, if there's something bothering you, you can tell us. We're all friends here. The duo could see Hashirama struggling with himself if he should speak or not. Don't worry about it, he replied. Come on, just spit it out already. Madara was starting to get annoyed. The blonde narrowed his own eyes at him, about to warn him to back off since it was a sensitive subject for Hashirama. Really, it's nothing. Naruto's own eyes turned to Hashirama as he kept repeating nothing was wrong over and over when something was clearly wrong. Madara sighed. We'll be here all day if you don't tell us what's bothering you. It's okay. Don't trouble yourself over me. It's nothing to worry about. He may have said that, but the tears rolling down his face said different. That was the last straw. Damn you. Here I am trying to help you with your damn problem and you won't let me. Just hurry the hell up and tell us already. Roared Madara, arms in the air. Naruto decided to intervene before their friendship turned ugly. Don't worry about Madara. He told Hashirama. That's just his way of showing he's worried about you. Madara turned away, a faint coloring on his cheeks, someone was able to tell. So, can you please tell us what's bothering you? Asked the blonde. My little brother was killed, he replied in a hushed voice. The other two stiffened when they heard the reason. I always come here when I feel like this. Everything just bottled up inside of me, he said, looking at the water. I look at the flow of the current and I feel like all of my troubles are just washing away. Naruto looked at Hashirama with sadness, hearing what had happened. He looked at Madara and could see that the boy was looking at Hashirama with pain in his own eyes. Is it the same for either of you? Asked Hashirama. Naruto shook his head while Madara didn't answer. Either of you have any siblings? He hesitated in asking such a question since it could be taken in a suspicious way. Thankfully, neither of them took it as such. None, was all Naruto had to say. I have 4 brothers, replied Madara, a bitter smile on his face. Or rather, I used to have 4 brothers. He looked at the other 2. This is what it means to be a shinobi. Death is always around any corner. Naruto didn't open his mouth to speak, instead choosing to listen. He was learning more and more every day about shinobi life. He would have asked his parents, but he figured they may not tell him since it was probably the reason they were secluded to begin with. From what I can tell, the only possible way to avoid needless death is to be upfront with the other side. Perhaps even, oh I don't know, form an alliance with them, stated Madara. Unfortunately, that's just wishful thinking. Shinobi are too proud, paranoid, and suspicious of everyone to allow that. Hashirama looked at his friend. Do you really believe that nobody will ever be able to understand and be honest with the other side? He didn't believe that, he just couldn't. Naruto spoke up. I don't believe that. He had their attention. What do you mean? What I mean is that it doesn't have to be the entirety of a group who has to be honest and upfront with one another. As long as there is one person from each side that does those 2 things, then I believe that with time, both groups will soon follow. Hummed Madara. That sounds much more plausible than what me or Hashirama were talking about. It sounds more doable. He put his arm over Naruto's shoulder. I hope that someday, someone will do what you are suggesting. Leaning down and picking up a stone, he separated from Naruto and chucked his stone. Hey, looks like this time, I got one over. Now neither of you are the only ones who got one over. Naruto smirked at Madara and gave him a high five. Hashirama was watching them interact with one another and smiled. The 2, no not 2, 3, the 3 of them were living proof that they could put their differences aside and come together. Granted they didn't know each other's surnames, but that part would take some time. After all, you didn't learn to run before you could crawl. It seems we 3 have something in common. You know that I can read you like an open book, right? Said Madara, looking at Hashirama's stunned face. Wah, you have no sense of style, commented Madara. Naruto was right. Look at your haircut, and those clothes. Don't get out much, do you? He said, smirk in place. Looks like you finally agreed with me about the bull head. Hashirama's eye twitched. I guess that's the only thing we have in common. Oh well. It was starting to get dark, probably within the hour. Well guys, it was nice seeing and talking to you again, but I think I should head home, said Naruto. Only one other agreed. Yeah, same for me. I'm going to stay a bit longer, replied Hashirama. The other 2 shrugged. So when would you guys like to meet again? Asked the blonde. He might as well ask them and get a straight answer. He didn't want to waste chakra by sending a clone here, even though he wouldn't really feel it. How about once every 6 days, and we meet on the 7th? Offered Madara. The other 2 agreed, when Hashirama spoke up. I also suggest meeting here and then moving ourselves to different places. Naruto understood immediately, hearing his mother's words in his head. All right then, that sounds like a plan, said the blonde. I'll see you guys in 7 days. His piece was said, he vanished via body flicker, surprising the other 2. Having finally made it out of the woods and back home before he could hear an earful from his mother for just making it back before night, he went to his room. It had been odd though. He hadn't spotted either of his parents in the living room nor anywhere else. Having not checked their bedroom, he distributed his weight evenly so as to avoid making sound and placed his ear on their door. What's that noise? He was hearing a light noise coming from their room, but he had never heard anything like it before. Shrugging it off as something unusual to look into later, he went to his room and went to sleep. The following weeks, Naruto was once more making his way over to his friends. They had been doing this for the past weeks and so far, had yet to be found. It was great. All they did was talk and then train some more. He wasn't sure how long the days were for Hashirama and Madara until they would meet, but they weren't honestly that bad for him. During the 6 days he would be waiting, he would often spend it with his mother and father or on his home. Speaking of his home, the project was almost done, the ground was done, as were the walls, and the roof. He still needed a door and furniture, along with a few other things. One thing he had realized after he had finished it was that he didn't want someone to accidentally find it and do anything to it. So it was because of this that he began to focus on genjutsu and casting an illusion over the house or even possibly the area. That was mostly what he did in his off time away from friends. So far, the times he had been with friends, they had been really productive. They had done as Hashirama had said and left the area once they arrived. They had found a bunch of different areas that offered different types of surroundings for training. They named the training grounds with numbers and so far there were only 7. Today they would be going to the 7th one, his favorite. Naruto was on the sidelines, carefully watching the spar between Madara and Hashirama. He was silently studying their forms, noting one relied a bit more on power while the other seemed to wait for the attack and then respond. Both of them were way more advanced than him. Draw. He announced. He was the official. What? I said it's a draw. Naruto repeated. Neither of you is getting the upper hand on the other. Going by this rate, we'll be here until nightfall. And I want my turn. He whined. I guess it would only be fair. Hummed Hashirama. I will be the official this time. Alright. Naruto stepped up and faced Madara. Rules are the same. Unarmed combat only, nothing else. The two nodded. This fight will be over when I call it. Begin. Naruto watched as his friend relaxed into his stance, waiting for him to charge. He complied. Naruto ran forward, moving side to side, trying to throw him off. He slid to the ground suddenly with a low kick that missed, and just barely dodged a kick sent towards his chin. He flipped backwards, sending another kick, this time to the chin of Madara who slapped his foot away easily. Not one to be discouraged, he ran at him again, throwing wild punch after wild punch, nothing landing. Madara on the other hand parried each attack, grunting as he directed each of the heavy punches away from his body. His own attacks, however, did land on the blonde, yet he kept getting back up. You have no form whatsoever. Softly commented Madara. Who taught you taijutsu? No one. Happily supplied Naruto, having heard him. I don't really know a style. I haven't even really started on one yet. He replied, rushing him once more. What? Madara said, incredulously. How can you not know a style yet still try and fight either of us? By this point Naruto had stopped, hearing the tone in his voice. It didn't matter to me that I didn't know one yet, he replied. I just wanted to spar with the both of you. He smiled. He just wanted to do things with his friends and not feel left out. It may not matter to you, but it does to us. Hashirama agreed with Madara. We three are here to become stronger in order to accomplish what we have set out to do, he stated. Hashirama clapped, getting their attention. Okay. I think we should call this spar. We need to discuss a style for you and then any weak points we might have. From there we can then help one another in correcting them, said Hashirama. Alright. Said Madara, looking at the blonde. What do you want to learn? I don't know. The only unarmed combat I've seen is the two of yours. Hashirama hummed and looked at his raven-haired friend. What did you glean from your short spar? Madara closed his eyes, recalling the fight. He's fast, and his punches are heavy. He rubbed his arms. I see, that is a deadly combination, commented the bullhead. Perhaps joint manipulation, he mumbled. What's that? Asked the blonde. Basically the spot where our bones connect which allow us to move or bend, answered Hashirama since he knew about this stuff. Joint manipulation allows you to deliver varying degrees of pain to an opponent and in some cases even injure them. Whoa. Yep. Normally this isn't all that practical for most shinobi except for those of us who are exceptionally fast. With you being both fast and strong, once you take hold, one move is all it would take for you to tear or break the tendon or bone. That sounds useful, but I don't know much about the human body, replied Naruto. It really did sound useful to him, and even should he not be able to use it in combat, who's to say he couldn't use it on someone who was unconscious, keep them from making hand seals. That, however, shouldn't be all he learns though, added Madara. What happens when he can't grab a hold of someone? Or someone is faster than him? This is also true. Agreed Hashirama. With his speed, he can react and act in just a matter of seconds. He needs to learn how to use an opponent's speed and power against them, stated Madara. This is all well and good, but how am I supposed to learn these things? Questioned Naruto. He would have used his clones, but he was already at his max set by his mother. Those clones were on the house and he didn't want them doing anything but finishing that. Hashirama and Madara looked at one another and nodded. We can teach you. In order for them all to get stronger, then some things from their own families would have to be shared. Although neither of the others would ever know that it came from their families. I also have a few scrolls on the human body that I could let you borrow, offered Hashirama. He had already finished those a few times already, it was why he was so familiar with joint locks. Wow, thanks guys. I don't have anything I can teach you though. He would have shown them the clone technique, but his mother said it was a secret family technique. So he couldn't teach it to them. They waved him off. It's fine. We all have the same goal and it would make little sense if all of us couldn't get there at the same time, stated Hashirama. He speaks the truth. Naruto couldn't say anything, he was speechless. He was really glad he had met these two all those days ago. They continued their training session while showing Naruto the parts he would need to create a personal style of taijutsu for himself. 2 weeks later, while the trio had originally agreed to meet every 7 days, they had often discarded the rule and met much more frequently. Naruto had received the scrolls from Hashirama while receiving personal training from Madara. His taijutsu was coming along nicely. He's been incredibly busy as of late in the past 2 weeks. His normal exercise routine was unaffected as it just kept increasing as he went. No, what he was referring to was his other time. With his house in the forest complete and just lacking furniture which he could eventually get, he was training his genjutsu himself while his clones had begun basic training with fuinjutsu, under supervision from both his parents. He was only able to accomplish so many things because the limit on his clones had been raised by his parents since they felt it was time to. From what the clones would often send him, his parents were slave drivers when it came to seals. I'm so glad I'm focusing on illusions. He shivered at the thought of being under the scrutinizing eyes of his parents. Hopefully that day wouldn't come for a while. You know, started Hashirama, breaking Naruto's muse. The way I see it, permanent lasting peace is the key, he stated. But then again, those are just pretty words. I have no clue where we would even start, he mumbled. Well, first off you start by never wavering and standing firm by your convictions, replied Madara. Naruto agreed. Then you attain unmatched strength and power. No one will want to follow anyone who is weak. Naruto chimed in. I agree with you on that point, but power and strength aren't everything. Madara scoffed, clearly not believing him. If you want people to follow you and your ideals, then you have to prove yourself to them through your actions, not through how much power you wield, he replied. Both are good points, said Hashirama, playing peacekeeper. We'll just keep mastering technique on top of technique to become strong. Then when we are strong can we begin to really do something to spread our ideals. He was about to continue when Madara went over to the ledge of the slab of rock they were sitting on and began to go to the bathroom, or tried to. Naruto and Hashirama both looked at their friend with half-lidded eyes and smirks. The bull-headed one walked over to him. You really can't drain it, he teased. I told you, yelled Madara. I'm really sensitive to my surroundings. He body shook as he couldn't get it to come out. So it seems that Naruto was correct. Hashirama told himself. You really do have a problem with your plumbing downstairs, he concluded. Yep. I've always been spot on when guessing these things about people. Madara glowered. If either of you say another word, then you'll both be swimming in my urine, he threatened. All he had to do was turn around. Naruto snorted. I highly doubt that. If he couldn't get it out without them looking, then there was no way he could do it facing them. Madara heard him snort and was about to speak up. Anyways, interrupted Hashirama, I wanted to let you guys know that I came up with a badass technique. By this point Madara had covered himself up and turned around. Oh, do tell. Yes, please stop keeping us in suspense. Hashirama couldn't detect the sarcasm from Naruto nor why he was smirking, but Madara could since he was snickering. Naruto was glad he could at least make one of them laugh. He meant no harm when he said that to Hashirama, it was all just in good fun. Anyways, I call this one, the Mega Fist of Fiery Illusion Shuriken Slicer Double Impact Jutsu. Madara had a look of disgust on his face. Like he ate something sour. That is a mouthful. He finally got out. Hey, that sounds pretty cool. Naruto admitted, looking at his friend. Can you teach it to me? Madara rolled his eyes, he needed to put a stop to this. Hashirama nodded, enthusiastically. Of course I'll teach it to you, Naruto. You see, the trick behind it is. I have a better idea, interrupted Madara. We'll scale these rock walls behind me and we'll work on our upper body strength today. He patted the giant mountain wall behind him. Hashirama was sulking. Madara sighed, shaking his head. You can't sulk just because things don't go your way. Well, while I really want to learn that technique, as long as we get some training in today then I'm all good, replied the blonde. Yay! Madara was drowned out. Yahahaha, I'm gonna be first, screamed Hashirama, running up the mountainside. Naruto not far behind him. Madara was shocked. He screamed. After a few seconds, the trio were situated on the top. The winner is me, panted Hashirama, a smile on his face. No. Shit, you cheated, replied Madara, panting just as hard. Well, at least, I didn't come in last. Hey, it's not my fault. I'm wearing weights. Both Madara and Hashirama looked at him confused. Weights? You're not wearing any weights though? Questioned Madara. He knew what training weights looked and felt like, and his friend didn't have them on. I have chakra weights on. The more chakra I apply the heavier they become. Now his two friends were intrigued. That sounds very useful, muttered Hashirama. Do you think I can have some as well? I as well. Naruto wasn't sure if he could or not. I don't know. These were applied to me by my father. I can try to make copies but don't get your hopes up. He was speaking the truth. He may be studying seals under his parents' guidance, but that didn't mean he was that good at it yet. They both nodded. Man, would you look at this view? Hashirama said, breathless. The vista in front of him was truly magnificent. The other two agreed. Yeah, you can see everything from here. I know for certain that I've got superior vision. Madara looked at his friends. Do either of you feel like having a contest? That was random, said Hashirama. You are that confident in your eyes. Yeah, my eyesight is good, but even I can't see that far from here, added Naruto. Madara puffed out his chest. Of course I'm confident. After all, I have the sherry. The blonde and other raven-haired youth looked at their friend and wondered why he had stopped so abruptly. What's wrong? They chorused. Madara looked away. Nothing. Truth is, I'm simply mediocre. The blonde snorted. Modesty doesn't suit you. He ignored his blonde friend. If I was really elite, then my brothers wouldn't have, he trailed off. I couldn't protect any of them. A solemn tone in his voice. So, all of your brothers are. No, I've still got one younger brother left. A fierce determination in Madara's eyes. I'm gonna protect him at any and all costs. He felt a hand on his shoulder. I believe that you can and will protect your brother, stated Naruto. Hashirama plopped up from his seat. It's settled then. This will be headquarters for our village. It'll be a place where kids will never have to kill each other. He announced. I can see it now. A school to train and educate young children. We can assign missions, teachers can delegate them accordingly by rank. No kid in our village will ever have to experience the horrors or the battlefield. Madara was chuckling at his enthusiasm. I don't know if you're a visionary or just plain insane. An insane visionary, offered Naruto. So, what do you guys think? Naruto gave him a thumbs up. I like it. Madara agreed. As do I. It'll allow me to keep a closer eye on my brother. So what would we call the village anyways? All of them paused for a moment and tried to come up with names. Hey, Naruto got their attention. How about the Great Na? No, interrupted Madara. I can already tell that it's going to sound stupid. He put a stop to that before he could get started. Naruto was pouting. But you didn't even know what I was going to say, he mumbled. Trust me, I could already tell it would be no good, deadpanned Madara. Well, let's just hear him out. Hashirama wanted to give him a chance. Fine, sighed Madara. As I was saying before, I was so rudely interrupted. How about the great Naruto village? He announced. Madara shook his head. How about no? That just sounds stupid. Right, Hashi. I like it, replied Hashirama with a nod. The great Maelstrom village. People will totally respect that. How did you know the other meaning of my name? Questioned the blonde. He didn't think anyone knew that. He got waved off. It wasn't too hard actually. I just thought of the opposite of ramen toppings, he replied cheekily. Just shut up the both of you, growled Madara. That's not what we are calling the village that I had a hand in creating. For now, just leave it alone. We'll come up with something later. Fine, we'll leave it alone for now, stated Hashirama. We should probably start heading back, said Naruto, looking at the sky. Yeah, we should. The other two also looked up and could see it was starting to get dark. They bid each other goodbye and left. 5 days later, Naruto was wearing the largest smile on his face right now. Aside from going to see his friends and continue their training together, he was going to continue learning a very useful skill from Madara. When the three of them had met 3 days prior to this visit, Madara had brought up the something that had caught his ear. Sensors. He hadn't been sure what they were, but when his friend had explained it to him, he knew he had it. It was the reason why he was able to feel things that were never near him. He was very glad he had decided to hone it all those years ago, but now he was going to train with someone who knew what they were doing. It was the reason why he was excited about training today. Not only were they meeting 2 times in a week, but he was going to train in something he had already started on. However, one thing did strike him as odd when they were having the conversation. Madara had stated that he had to train his control and senses to get where he was at, but Naruto never had done that. One day, he just started feeling things around him. Madara had told him it was possible he was just born much more sensitive to things around him, and it only started to show as he had started to train. That made sense to the blonde. Well, whatever it was, he was glad he had it. Finally arriving to the creek, he half expected both of his friends to be having a spar. Instead, he arrived to an even stranger scene. They were both there, but both on the opposite sides of the creek. He was about to make himself known and jump out when he watched them throw the stones in their hands to the other and could have sworn he saw a look of worry on their faces. Why are they worried for? Deciding to expect the unexpected, he revealed himself to his friends. Hey, what's wrong you two? He asked. They both stiffened when they heard his voice. Oh no, what is he doing here? And now of all times. Madara had a grim look on his face. I completely forgot about him coming. Hashirama scolded himself for his lapse. This is not going to end well. Naruto narrowed his eyes when he suddenly felt 4 chakra signatures. All 4 jumped out from the forest, 2 shadows landing behind both Madara and Hashirama. He could see the resemblance that his 2 friends held to the unknown 4. The man standing behind Hashirama was a very tall, heavy-set looking man. Dark eyes glaring at the man across from him while his shoulder-length black hair and piece of cloth swayed in the wind. The boy next to him was fair-skinned, dark eyes, and white shaggy hair. He had the same stern-looking face the older man had. He also looked about a year or two younger than himself. He was still a bit miffed that out of the three of them, he was the youngest at 8, they were both 10 and he wished they were the same age. It would have been another thing they would have shared. His musing was cut short. Well, looks like we were on the same page, weren't we, Senju Butsuma? Stated the man behind Madara. Seems the miracles will never cease, Uchiha Tajima. Replied Butsuma, glaring. Naruto now looked at the now named Tajima. He was just a bit shorter than Butsuma but nonetheless intimidating. His dark black eyes were set on a glare as he brushed the black hair, which framed his face, to the side. The boy next to him was a carbon copy of Madara, spiky black hair, black eyes, and fair skin. Yo, Tobirama, said the younger Uchiha, sword at the ready. Yo, Izuna, replied the now named Tobirama, following suit. He honestly didn't know if he should be glad or a bit annoyed that they had yet to notice his presence. He chalked it up to them not just knowing him. Yeah, that was it. About to open his mouth to say something, he was stopped since the 4 new arrivals had jumped at one another fiercely. The 2 adult men battling one another while their sons down below battled to the death. Not sure how this was going to turn out, he looked over to his 2 friends and could see they were completely shell-shocked. Unable to move or say anything that would or could stop this. Stop it, he heard them yell. It didn't work. None of the combatants were paying them any attention, they couldn't afford to. One look away and it was all over. His eyes widened when both men took out kunai, and hurtled them towards the other man, son, hoping that with their death, it would be enough to land a killing blow on the other. Both Hashirama and Madara had hesitated for no more than a second, but that was enough. Even had they thrown their own weapons, they wouldn't have made it in time. He reacted quickly, taking out 2 of his own kunai that he had brought for today and looked at the spots he would need to hit in order to stop them. He crossed his arms together and flung them. Clang! Both of the weapons' trajectories had been changed as the kunai landed on a tree. Madara and Hashirama jumped in front of their siblings, ready to shield them from any more attacks. It was only after Naruto had interfered that everything had seemingly calmed down. Now it was when everyone noticed him, both arms still outstretched, indicating it was he who had deflected them. His 2 friends had sent him small nods of thanks, but everyone had seen them. Who are you, boy? Said Tajima, contempt in his voice, not liking that his fight was interrupted. Yes, who are you? Added Butsuma, agreeing with his enemy, loath as he was to do it. Is it not proper to introduce yourself first before asking for another name? Questioned the blonde, a small smirk on his face. Both men, jaws clenched at his attitude while their eyes narrowed at him. They were both studying him up and down, side to side, even when their enemy was only feet away from them. Uchiha Tajima, head of the Uchiha clan. Senju Butsuma, head of the Senju clan. Seeing as their fathers were going along with this, the 2 youngest decided they didn't want to be left out. Uchiha Izuna, brother of Madara, stated the younger brother, who mentally smirked. He had announced himself before Tobirama had a chance to. Tobirama had a scowl on his face. Senju Tobirama, brother of Hashirama. Namikaze Naruto. He actually wasn't going to give out his name but he didn't want to risk them getting angry and then deciding to kill him. While he was sure he could escape, he didn't want them to follow him as he lead them to his house, and inadvertently his parents. This was his problem, he would handle it. Namikaze were the thoughts of everyone, never having heard such a name before. I've never heard of a clan such as that, stated the Senju clan leader. Nor have I, Naruto shrugged. We are new. Then I'm afraid it will be over before it even begins, started Tajima. You will die here today along with this Senju scum. Before he could make good on his threat, his oldest stepped in. Don't bother, he said with a stoic face. Hashirama is stronger than me, and Naruto there is stronger than the both of us, he stated. Now this little piece of news drew the clan head attention back to the blonde boy. They couldn't believe that two of the most promising shinobi from the two most powerful clans in the lands were weaker than an upstart from a fledgling clan. No way, Izuna said in disbelief. They're both stronger than you, big bro. Tajima scoffed. I have a hard time believing that. The Senju perhaps is stronger as you say, loath I am to admit it, he muttered. But I refuse to believe that this other boy is your superior. He snarled. Madara eyed his father like he was an idiot. Well, he is. His chakra reserves alone dwarf everyone else, here, combined. He let out that little nugget of information, he was sure that would shut them up. He never understood why adults were just so stupid when it came to certain things. Like listening to their children. They were more perceptive than people gave them credit for. His control of his chakra is good, the same as me, possibly higher. He is also much faster than Hashirama or myself. And that's not counting his chakra weights. Chakra weights, repeated the clan heads, glaring at one another for copying each other. Naruto glared at his friend for revealing that. Madara saw the glare and ignored it. That's right, chakra weights. It weighs down the body depending on how much chakra you have. So the more you have, the heavier you become, but the faster you get as a result, he said. Naruto's eyes widened a fraction of an inch. His friend had given away his training exercise but not the correct specifics of how it worked. What an ingenious way of training. Butsuma looked at the boy in interest now. His value in life was now far outweighing his value in death. He would need to find a way to capture the boy for his clan. Tajima was thinking along the same lines as his enemy. We must find a way to acquire this. With superior speed in our dojutsu, nobody would stand against us. He needed this boy on his side. And from the way he deflected both kunai, at the same time with both hands, tells me he is also very skilled in that as well. Madara had continued to list off his friend's strengths. Then we should eliminate him, lied Tajima. Before he becomes too much of a threat. Madara shook his head negatively. That wouldn't work either. You remember that I am a censor, right? His father gave him a stiff nod. Well, right now I sense over 100 bodies just outside of this creek, surrounding both sides. His declaration caused everyone but him to stiffen and have their weapons at the ready. Their eyes searched every possible location, yet nothing came. Why aren't they on us? Asked Izuna, slightly shaking a bit. I never said it was an enemy, replied Madara. The one thing similar about all of the chakra signatures is that they are the same as Naruto's. Hey, so you were able to sense all of my shadow clones, huh? Shadow clones? Asked Tobirama. The term sounded dumb, why not just name them clones? Whoever created the technique, whether it was the blonde or not, had to be an idiot. Yep. He chirped. I can create several copies of myself. The clan heads were now starting to get wary of the boy. His danger level was just too high for them to try and take a chance at capturing him or trying to take his secrets. If they botched this up and he escaped, he could very well come seeking revenge against them. They did not want unneeded deaths from the boy who would grow up into a monster made of human flesh. So they did the only thing they could at the moment, they called a retreat. They were not going to risk anything with the boy nor the clones surrounding them. The two clan leaders looked at one another and knew there would be other days to kill on another. It looks like talk of building our own village was nothing more than wishful thinking. Naruto, Hashirama. Madara, do you really believe that? Naruto shook his head. I don't believe that, Madara. Remember, all it takes is for one person from each side to understand the other. He looked at the two of them back and forth. You two already have that, along with me and my clan. Madara smiled sadly at him, even if what he said was true. Be that as it may, we can't really do anything now. He was referring to their situation at the moment. We don't have much power yet. And for what it's worth. He looked at the both of them for a moment. I really had a blast here with the two of you. Let's go. Ordered Tajima, sparing a glance at Naruto. If you attack us, then you will have the entire Uchiha clan to contend with. We will burn this forest to the ground and kill you, he threatened. The blonde just looked at him coldly. It seems he would need to set up some things around the forest to prevent this. He gave the Uchiha man a stiff nod, same with the Senju. Until next time. Madara was beginning to leave when Hashirama called out to him. Madara, you don't really believe everything was just wishful thinking, do you? After all our brainstorming, we'd finally. I agree with Hashirama on this one, Madara. Out of the three of us, you were the most hopeful for a village where we could avoid this exact situation, pointed out the blonde. Why can't they just let me leave? Thought Madara. Can't they see how hard this is for me? Trust me, guys. Both took note of the emotion in his voice. I really wish things could be different, but at the end of the day. He looked at Hashirama. You're a Senju, and the blood of my brothers are on the hands of your clan. Madara then looked to his last friend. I have no problems with you or the Namikaze clan, but even you and yours will feel my wrath if you harm my family, he threatened. Hashirama was getting apprehensive, thinking his friend was suddenly going to attack. Naruto's muscles tensed as he too believed he would attack. He really did not want to fight one of his only friends, but he would not lay down either. Madara noticed their tensing. Relax, no further blood will be shed today. However, the next time we meet, it'll be as adversaries on the field of battle, Senju Hashirama, he told his friend. And when that time comes, you will address me as Uchiha Madara. And me? Questioned Naruto. The eldest Uchiha simply stared at him for a moment. If we meet on the field of battle, then it is possible, he stated, wanting this to be as clear as possible. Anyone who is not an Uchiha is an enemy. Pray we do not cross paths, Namikaze Naruto. As he said this, his eyes took on a different color. You see that, father? Izuna exclaimed excitedly. Big brother's eyes have. We may have failed to eliminate the Senju, but we did gain information on another shinobi clan while you awakened our superior bloodline. The Senju were in shock. His Sharingan, did it just awaken? Butsuma couldn't believe it. Just how had their clan been the losers today? They had failed in their original mission, the enemy, Sun awakened his bloodline, and another new clan with a powerful youngster had forced them to retreat. This was just shameful. Naruto didn't know what the big deal with his eyes were and he didn't know it at the time, but that would be the last day he would see his friends. For a very, very long time. Arriving home much earlier than what he would have liked, he spotted both of his parents outside on the porch, just enjoying nature and each other's company. His father was looking worse and worse and he didn't know why he was even outside, but figured he must have whined to his mother about it. He took a deep breath and mentally began to prepare himself for the conversation he had been wanting to have for a while. It only took running into other shinobi to push him. Ka-chan, Tu-chan. He grabbed their attention. Can you tell me about the shinobi clans? They both were startled by the sudden question and the subject. Why do you want to know about them? Asked Yusuke. Well, it was the moment of truth. I kinda had a run-in with some recently. What? Screeched Kumiko, immediately jumping from her seat to check him. Are you alright? They didn't hurt you, did they? She asked, frantically. I'm fine. Yusuke was a bit more composed than his wife, but only by a little. Did they say what clan they belong to? Senju and Uchiha. The two former Uzumaki now turned Namikaze paled when they heard those names. Why had the two most fearsome clans been fighting so close to them? How did you even come across them? Well, when I went into that forest for the first time, I met two kids 2 years older than me. At first we just skipped stones across the creek, but then we began to train with each other. Once we started seeing how fast we were growing, we met more and more. Everything was fine, until today. What happened today? I arrived and saw the both of the on opposite sides. After a few seconds 4 shadows jumped out and 2 landed behind each of my friends. They began to fight and they finally noticed me when I saved the lives of the younger brothers of my friends. After that they questioned me but only got my name and a few of my skills. Go on. They could tell he had more to say. I got their names. Tajima, Izuna, and Madara, my friend. The others are Butsuma, Tobarama, and Hashirama, my other friend. Oh dear. Kumiko held her cheek in worry. I do believe that those are the current clan heads and their sons. They only knew that information since at the time they were with their clan, and the news had broken that clan heirs to the two strongest families had been born. Yusuke was rubbing the bridge of his nose. Okay. Did anything else happen? Just that Madara had no problem with me or my clan but would not hesitate should we ever cross paths. Okay. So it seems that they aren't going to be actively looking for you, but we should still put up more seals, just as precautions. He looked at his son. Your training is going to increase. Starting tomorrow you're going to learn how to make the seals we put around our home. Naruto nodded. Now, you wanted to know about clans, right? Yes. Very well, but keep in mind that I do not know all of them, he stated. Let's see. We have the Senju, Uchiha, Fuma, Sarutobi, Kagaya, and Uzumaki. He mumbled the last one. Wow, that's a lot. Can you explain more about them? In a moment, but I have a question for you. What are you going to do now? I'm not really sure, admitted the young blonde. At first I was training so I could become strong to protect you too, but after meeting my friends I came to have a purpose. Build a village with them, and protect everyone in it. They both smiled fondly at his nature to protect them. That indeed is a lofty goal. One you can still accomplish on your own, without them, but it will be much more difficult, admitted Yusuke. You need to get much stronger if you wish to protect your mother, me, and the rest of the villagers. Naruto agreed with his father about getting stronger but not about the former. It wouldn't be the same without my two friends, he replied softly. For now, I will train and then I will gain experience. By the time I come back, I can focus on building a village, he said. And who knows, I might run into my old friends out in the world. Kumiko rolled her eyes but had a smile on her face. Always the optimist. After his goal was spoken in further detail with his parents, he had learned what he could from his parents about the clans they mentioned. The only ones aside from Senju and Uchiha that interested him were Kagaya and Uzumaki. Unfortunately, his parents had limited information on both and made do with what they did have.